Do you like crime thriller movies? Maybe some of you saw Michael Douglas in Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, where he plays a corrupt district attorney who builds his career on planted DNA evidence. No? Even if you do not know this particular movie, there are many others and even real cases like the drug-dropping Deputy Wester in Florida. Wester was accused of escalating traffic stops into searches for illicit drugs and planting meth during the search. So as you can see, we sometimes have to deal with the question if evidence is trustworthy or not. In digital forensics, there appears to be a common belief that it is easier to tamper with digital evidence than to tamper with physical evidence. For example, Kumar et al. Write that digital evidence is less tangible, highly volatile, and relatively easier to be tampered compared to physical evidence. Similarly, Kalaunides states that digital data can be manipulated at will, and depending on the manipulator's sophistication, the alteration can be undetectable regardless of digital forensics experts' competence and equipment. Furthermore, digital evidence can be protected against manipulation by hashes, but we cannot hash a bloody knife. However, cryptographic hashes cannot prevent performing tampering before the first hash or simply tampering with the evidence and the documented hash. So we have many uncertainties in the question whether digital evidence could be falsified or not. To assess the plausibility of evidence tampering, the following line of reasoning is usually performed. If there are no clear signs of evidence tampering, the effort of tampering is high, and neither motivation nor competence of a possible manipulative actor for performing the tampering task is evident, then it is improbable that the evidence was tampered with. It is therefore crucial to assess the competences needed and the effort necessary to perform specific manipulations of digital evidence. In order to analyze the competences and the effort, Freiling and Hirsch already conducted experiments where students had to manipulate data on a hard disk image to study the manipulation effort for a specific manipulation task. They showed that hard disk drive tampering is hard and the effort to create forgeries is high. But does that depend on the type of evidence manipulated? Is the situation different when main memory images instead of hard disk drive images are tampered? And what factors influence the success of manipulations and the analysis speed? Can we determine a positive effect of training? To study this, we ran 2 experiments to study the manipulation and detection effort for main memory dumps. The first experiment was a 2-parted individual tampering and detection experiment with students from an advanced course on digital forensics at the Friedrich-Alexander University Erlangen-Nürnberg. The second one was a repetitive group analysis experiment with teams of professionals. We divided the experiment into 3 parts, A, B, and C. For the experiments, we created a fictitious scenario which may seem familiar to some of you. In October 2018, the police identifies a server on the internet which runs an illegal website selling drugs. The police observes a couple of SSH connections and thereby identifies another machine belonging to a person called Werner Weber. The police suspects Werner Weber to be the administrator of the website and obtains a search warrant for his house. During the search, the police finds Werner Weber's laptop and acquires a main memory dump of that machine using Lime. Directly after, electricity fails on the server and the laptop, making the encrypted disks inaccessible. The only evidence remaining is the memory dump of Werner Weber's laptop. If SSH connections to the server are found in the main memory dump, they can either be the result of a real SSH connection or alternatively, these tracks could have been planted by one of the investigators who is a personal enemy of Werner Weber. Before the experiment started, all participants had to fill in a questionnaire to gather information about their motivation and experience. Furthermore, the participants of Part A and B had to log their effort themselves. The effort of participants of Part C were logged automatically. For Part A and B, we defined an individual effort value called person effort. For Part C, we defined a group effort value named team effort. Person efforts are given in minutes and team efforts are given in seconds. First, we studied the effort required to tamper with a main memory dump. Therefore, we created a tampering task where the participants were given an image from which the server from the scenario was never accessed. The participants also received the SSH key to access the server and the pseudo password for the administration of the server. Participants were allowed to tamper with the image in any way they liked so that an analyst would come to the following conclusions. There was definitely an active network connection to the server at the time of main memory backup or before that. Administrative commands were executed on the server over this network connection. Besides the submission of the tampered image, the participants were also required to submit a description of their tampering approach and a project diary documenting their person effort. Overall, 23 students participated in Part A of the experiment. Most of them were computer science master students with a moderate motivation. If we compare the results of Part A of our experiment with Phase 1.A of the Freiling-Hirsch experiment, it can be observed that the effort for tampering main memory images was considerably higher in all parameters than for tampering with hard disk drive images. In Part A of the experiment, we studied the effort to tamper with main memory dumps. Let's have a look at Part B of the experiment now, where the participants were asked to examine a randomly chosen main memory image and to decide whether it was an original or forgery. The random image pool was created through randomly drawing 15 forgeries from Part A and adding 5 original images 3 times. Besides the image, participants received the kernel module used to generate the image, a volatility profile, the SSH key, and the pseudo password of the server. The aim was to determine whether there was an active network connection to the server for administrative purposes and if found traces are trustworthy. Overall, 22 students participated in Part B of the experiment. The participant intersection between Part A and B were 19 students. In total, 20 participants correctly classified the image from the random pool. 2 forgeries were falsely classified as originals. On average, it needed more effort to correctly classify an original than to correctly classify a forgery. This plot shows the tampering effort in relation to the detection effort. The plot shows that the greater the tampering effort, the smaller the detection effort. This contrasts with the findings of Freiling and Hirsch, where the trend was exactly opposite. We also analyzed the factors influencing the manipulation and the analysis success. Therefore, we compared the 2 participants who created successful forgeries with those who were not successful based on their data from the pre-study questionnaire. The 2 participants who created successful forgeries were computer science master students and participated in a preliminary digital forensics course. Both were highly motivated and they invested more time to produce their forgery than the other participants did. The 2 participants who did a wrong classification were both computer science students. One of them was a bachelor, the other one a master student. Both stated that they are highly motivated. The bachelor participant was the only participant who has not attended the introductory course on digital forensics. Even though both students stated that they want to invest 2 to 4 weekly hours to process the course exercises, the master student did not participate in the tampering task and invested only 60 minutes in the individual detection experiment. This contrasts with the average and indicates that experience helps to avoid falling for forgery. Furthermore, we classified the different tampering approaches from Part A of the experiment. The simulate and sweep class consists of all tampering approaches where a new memory dump was created that fits the fictitious scenario. This approach makes it easier to control the results and to keep consistency. The manual fix class consists of all tampering approaches where existing data was manually modified. This mostly involves changing existing bash history entries, process lists and network sockets, but also less obvious things like ARP cache entries and file names. The manual fix++ class is a subset of the manual fix class in which data was inserted at random or specific free locations in the dump. This included the password, SSH keys, and commands that could have been executed on the server and can be expected to be found in a legitimate dump. Forgeries created with the simulate and sweep method appeared very consistent to the analysts, especially when looking at network and user activities. When analysts identified this type of forgery as such, this happened because expected information were missing, traces of unanticipated tool usage could be found, and especially because time inconsistencies between apparently manipulated and non-manipulated data structures. Manual fix and manual fix++ forgeries were detected through inconsistencies in the bash history and the process list, such as double execution of commands, time and date inconsistencies, inconclusive command sequences, and incomplete entries. Furthermore, the analysts exposed the forgeries because of missing SSH keys, missing network connections, and missing inodes. The manual fix++ approach failed because the analysts assessed the random inserted information as data that is stored in the main memory without any context. Part C of the experiment was performed as part of the forensic rodeo during the DFRWS EU 2019 conference in April 2019 in Oslo, Norway. During the event, the participants had to group into teams and received a sequence of main memory dumps of Werner Weber's laptop. These memory dumps were the elements of the random pool created during Part A and individually analyzed in Part B. The memory dumps were presented to the teams as a sequence of challenges via a capture the flag platform. During the experiment, 40 challenges had to be solved sequentially, which were drawn randomly from the pool. For every challenge, the team had to decide whether the image is a forgery or not. Overall, 15 teams with 66 members participated in Part C of the experiment. Within a pre-study online questionnaire, most of them stated that they were average experienced professionals or academics. The experiment started at 7 p.m. and ended at 8:45 p.m. Thus, the teams had 105 minutes to solve the challenges. In our analysis, we restricted ourselves to the results of 5 teams that took part during the full time of the experiment, solved sufficiently many challenges, and that clearly were not solving most of the challenges by guessing. The confusion matrix shows that the participants of Part C had a very high correct detection rate, similar to Part B. 159 out of 183 challenges were correctly solved, 84 out of 92 originals, and 75 out of 91 forgeries. Conversely, 8 originals were classified as forgeries, and 16 forgeries were classified as originals. In general, the analysis effort seems to be lower for the group of professional analysts than for the student group. We now have a look at those forgeries that were incorrectly classified as originals. 4 of those challenges belong to the Simulate and Sweep class, 4 of them belong to the Manual Fix class, and 6 to the Manual Fix++ class. Interestingly, one of the Simulate and Sweep class forgeries was the same one that was also falsely classified as original in Part B of the experiment. During the evaluation of the data from Part C, we identified 2 factors influencing the analysis results. One factor was the parallel processing of challenges. Even though sequential processing of challenges was mandated by the rules of the experiment, it was not technically enforced. The effects of parallel processing of challenges clearly show up in the data. For example, the plot on the left-hand side shows the point in time where Team 4 started to process their challenges and the point in time where they submitted their answer. The plot clearly exhibiting a large amount of parallel processing to optimize the team effort. In contrast, the plot on the right-hand side shows the mostly sequential challenge processing of Team 11. Another factor was guessing. The plot on the right-hand side shows the distribution of the correct and incorrect answers given by Team 10. This clearly shows that the closer the experiment came to an end, the more random the results of the challenges were. This is in contrast to a similar plot for Team 4 on the left-hand side that shows no sign of guessing. Because of the parallel processing, Team 4 had much more time to solve the challenges than the other 4 teams. One of the major research questions in Part C of the experiment was to study the effect of repetition. The plot on the left-hand side shows the evolution of the team effort per challenge over time for Team 4, and the plot on the right-hand side for Team 9. They show that Team 4 quickly developed a solvent strategy, while Team 9 clearly showed an improvement of team effort over the time of the experiment. To conclude, the experiment results confirm that tampering is hard in the sense that the probability that a manipulation is detected is high. However, tampering with main memory dumps appears to be entirely different than tampering with hard disk images. We observed that the larger the tampering effort for main memory dump, the lower the forgery detection effort. This trend is inverse to what has been seen in the work on hard disk tampering and what can generally be expected. The different tampering approaches were similar to those documented by Freiling and Hirsch, where manual fix appears to be better than other approaches to slow down analysts. But detection success is obviously also influenced by experiments and training of the analysts. So thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed our research.